Today, we're going way back to one of the oldest and most influential stories ever told. It's a powerful tale of jealousy, murder, and consequence, one that has really sunk its teeth into human culture for thousands of years. And our source for all of this? Well, it's right here, in the fourth chapter of the book of Genesis. This single ancient piece of text lays out a family drama that kicks off right after humanity gets kicked out of paradise. Most of us know the story of Adam and Eve, right? But what happens next? What about their kids, the very first people born into this new, complicated world? Well, that's exactly where our story begins. So let's meet the main characters, the first two brothers in history, Cain and Abel. They're basically the first generation of humanity, and they have to figure out how to live, how to work, and how to worship in a world that's no longer Eden. Right from the start, you see they are completely different. Cain is a farmer, a tiller of the ground. Think of him as representing a settled agricultural way of life. Then you have Abel, a shepherd, a keeper of sheep, representing a more nomadic, pastoral lifestyle. This difference is going to be a big deal. So, both brothers decide to make an offering to God. Cain brings some of his crops, fruit of the ground. But look at the language used for Abel's gift. He brings the firstlings, the very best of his flock, and the fat thereof. The text is making a point here. It's not just a gift, it's the best gift. And this is where everything changes. God accepts Abel's offering, but he rejects Cain's. Now, the text is famously quiet about the exact reason why. Was it the quality of the offering? Was it Cain's attitude? We don't know for sure. But the result is what matters. For Cain, this rejection just lights a fuse. It says he was furious and his countenance fell. But God doesn't just reject Cain and walk away. He actually confronts him, asks him straight up, "Why are you so angry?" And then he gives him this incredible warning. This image of sin lieth at the door. It's like temptation is a predator, crouching, just waiting for him to make the wrong move. It's a huge moment of choice for Cain. So, does Cain take the warning to heart? Nope. He lets that anger fester. And this is where that private resentment is about to explode into public violence, changing the world forever. The setting is so simple, almost painfully normal. When they were in the field, just two brothers, a place of work, of nature, the text just lets that phrase hang there for a second, really building the tension. And there it is. In one short, brutal sentence, the unthinkable happens. The first murder. With this one act of violence, the human story is permanently altered. After the crime, God shows up and confronts Cain again. And he asks a question he already knows the answer to. This isn't about getting information. It's a call to confession. It's giving Cain one last chance to own up to what he's done. And Cain's response? Wow. It has become one of the most famous lines in history. It's a lie, it's a deflection, and it's a deeply philosophical question all at once. Am I my brother's keeper? By saying this, he's not just denying the murder, he's denying any responsibility for his fellow human being. Okay, so the crime is done, the lie's been told, now comes the judgment. But the punishment Cain gets is more complex than you might think. It's not just simple revenge, it's actually intricately tied to the crime itself. I mean, listen to this imagery. It's incredible. The very earth that Cain farms, the ground that literally soaked up his brother's blood, is now a witness against him. His crime hasn't been silenced, it's crying out. So Cain's punishment fits the crime with this terrible, poetic justice. First, as a farmer, he's cursed from the earth. The ground he works will no longer work for him. Second, the man who broke the bond of family is now a fugitive, cut off from his community and from God. And finally, the man who took his brother's place on earth now has no place of his own to call home. He's doomed to wander. But then, just when you think you have it all figured out, the story throws a curveball. Cain is terrified. He thinks anyone who finds him will kill him in revenge. And what does God do? He places a mark on Cain, not as a brand of shame, but as a sign of divine protection. It's this complex act of mercy right in the middle of judgment, meant to stop the cycle of violence before it can even start. So the story doesn't just end with Cain wandering off into the sunset. His actions have consequences that ripple outward, essentially setting humanity on two very different tracks. And here's the great paradox. Cain, The man cursed to be a wanderer becomes a builder. The first murderer is also the founder of the first city. So his legacy, weirdly enough, is tied to the very beginnings of human civilization and society. But that legacy of violence, oh, it doesn't go away. In fact, it gets stronger. A few generations later, one of Cain's descendants, a man named Lamech, actually boasts about killing someone for just hurting him. He takes God's promise of protection for Cain and twists it into this terrifying personal vendetta of over-the-top revenge. Just when it seems like humanity is locked into this dark, violent path, the narrative pivots. It offers a glimmer of hope. It says, wait a minute, there is another way. Adam and Eve have a third son, Seth, and he's presented as a replacement for the righteous Abel, who was killed. From Seth, a whole new line begins, a line of people who, the text says, began to call upon the name of the Lord. And so this ancient story leaves us staring down a profound question. It lays out two possible paths for humanity, both starting from that first family. One path builds cities and civilization, but it's haunted by escalating violence. The other is about faith and new beginnings. And thousands of years later, we're still wrestling with which of those legacies truly defines the human story.